Welcome back to the Man Cave, everybody, and to episode 56 of the ManTFup podcast. I'm Kimmy B.
And Lenny.
Before we go any further, please like, subscribe, share, and follow. We are absolutely everywhere, and definitely get in on the conversation on our social media, TikTok, Instagram, our YouTube pages. We love your feedback. We love your insight. We love your comments, even when you disagree and drag us. All right? Now, that being said, speaking of disagreeing and dragging, Len, you and I have gone toe-to-toe quite a few times about the state of affairs here in Miami in particular, right? I make no qualms about the fact that I'm 305 now I'm Boston bred, Miami fed. That's how I like to word it. I love where I come from, but I absolutely love the city of Miami. I love South Florida. Clearly, I have not left since I got here in 1998.
Typical tourist.
You know what I mean, right? Never leaves. I was actually born in Florida, though.
You're still a tourist.
So, I was born in Naples.
Okay, whatever.
I've spent more of my life in the state of Florida than I did in Massachusetts. So,
I'd have to see your birth certificate. Calling an Obama on that one.
Mom, Naples, Florida, West Side. Anyway, listen. But I feel like I have a unique perspective on what folks are going through as far as, real estate, renting, the job market, income, especially when it has to do with the 305. And I say that because, A, you haven't lived in Miami in a long time for various reasons. You hate the traffic. I mean, you usually give me a laundry list, but you were a Miami kid growing up, yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Born and raised.
And we've talked at length about especially the situation having to do with rent. For a long time, Miami was like a hidden gem, right? At least to the folks who lived here. We kind of felt that way in the sense of, we had pretty reasonable rent rates, especially for what you got in comparison to other major metropolises, right? Like when you were thinking New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, we were definitely
on the low end.
Low end. Yeah. But you were getting balconies and, water views and, great locale.
Car washes on Christmas Day.
You get it. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to living in Miami for sure. But that was something that was very attractive to a lot of people. But that is no longer the case. And the scary part about it was it happened virtually overnight for a lot of people. Like, at least that's what it felt like. The astronomical rent increases during the COVID pandemic when Florida remained open and so many other places closed. And all of a sudden, folks started flooding in and realizing, wait a minute, you can get how much square footage for what? And a balcony? And you're on the Are you kidding me? I was paying 10 times that for a closet, and that's a specific dig at New York in particular, but LA really no better. San Francisco, absolutely astronomical. But the scary part for people who live here was the fact that, rents skyrocketed. And while some folks were lucky enough to be able, I think, to keep up because obviously, they were making they were the people that were really capitalizing, people like me. I was, making good money. And then I lived in an older building and had, ridiculous. My rent was ridiculous. Like, I will put it out there. I was paying, I think, $2,100 a month. But I had 1,600 square feet, 1,500 square feet, 250 feet of deck space. I was on Biscayne Bay with a northeast view, unobstructed. It was fabulous. I lived in the building for 17 years. When I moved in, I was paying $1,500.
That same apartment's probably $3,500.
Oh, no, it's now $40. It's actually, I hate to even say this, but it's reasonable for what the market is now. It's $4,800, but it doubled in price. And the reason why I left was because they actually kicked us all out. They kicked all the residents out so that they could make some minor renovations and again
raise the rent.
Yeah, and I'm not mad. The penthouse in that building is now going for, I want to say, $35,000 or $40,000 a month. They're massive. It's again an older building, so the units are very large.
Big.
But like I said, I was able to make the adjustment, but trust and believe me, because my rent is now very similar to what I would be paying if I lived in my old building. Not quite $4,800, but pushing it. But I definitely felt it. Nobody, I don't care. Unless you're living so far below your means, can absorb a 100% increase in your rent and not feel anything.
No. Most
You know what
people
I'm
are on
saying?
an income that's,
Well,
fairly fixed.
even people who are making, like I said, we have the conversation in Miami now, and you say you make six figures, and people are like, you know what I mean? You're having this conversation with people, and it's like, because that is what you need. And a study actually just came out, and it is in fact proven that now to live in 11 cities, Miami being one of them, renters have to have a six-figure salary in order to not be considered quote unquote rent burdened. And rent burdened is apparently whenever you dedicate 30% or more of your income to paying your rent. And that's scary because, you and I went toe to toe on this for a while. The median income in Miami, Len, is $45,000 a year. That has not changed. So how does the average renter have to make six figures in order to live in Miami, but the median income in Miami is 45 grand?
Well, I mean, they have to work harder. You know how I feel about that. Play to pay.
I get it.
Pay to play.
There's only so many $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 jobs.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, I know waitresses that make $100,000 a year.
100%.
It's,
how many
it's
of
all
them?
about the hustle.
But how many of them?
A good amount.
No, Lenny, what is a good amount? 100, again, Len, you love to do this, and that is also because of the places that you frequent. There's plenty of waitresses working at Denny's that are lucky if they're clearing 25 grand. You know what I'm saying? So you're talking about
They have roommates.
You're talking about so do the fine girls making $100,000 a year, because guess what? Nobody wants to have to literally be broke just to pay their rent, and that's part of the problem. And we've seen the comments, and you always get yourself in trouble on this conversation.
I have no idea.
People are talking about that. They're in their 30s. They can't afford a mortgage. And it's because if you've come out of college and this is what you've been paying for rent to live in these big cities where, you thought, hey, I landed six figures. I come out of college, I'm making $125,000 a year. Maybe I'm living in Long Island or on Long Island, whatever. Working in the city. So I'm commuting. So I'm not living in Manhattan, because $125,000 in Manhattan, unless you have rent control,
Not working.
you're not living off of $125,000, which is wild to even say. Like, when the average American, again, makes about 55,000, and that's taking into consideration, that's averaged. So we've got some people that are clear, that's average. That's Jeff Bezos is lumped into that when you're talking about averaging things out.
But I mean, clearly everything's rented. So somebody is making the money to live in these places, because all those buildings in downtown and down Biscayne are all rented.
But I just read you the comments.
No, I feel you.
And that was a local news station that posted that. And I read you the comments of people who clearly live in Miami that are saying, my landlord has raised my rent 3 times in the past year, $500 a pop. Somebody else said, in 2012, I was renting a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home for $1,800 a month or something like that, or $1,500 a month. Now I live in a 2-2 in Lauderdale Lakes, and I'm paying $2,200 a month. And again, her rent is probably going to go up to $2,500 a month at some point. You know what I'm saying? Just because people are living in those units, doesn't necessarily mean they're a part of the community. We know what kind of transient population we have in the city of Miami, right? Like, we know we have a huge amount of foreign investors in this city. We know that there's a ton of Central and South American money poured into a lot of these buildings. We know there's a ton of Russian money. There's a lot of Europeans. And then, of course, there's a lot of very, very, very wealthy people, but that is clearly not the average Miamian. And so at some point, something has to change. Like, at some point, the workforce is going to have to shift in order to support more people needing access to $100,000 jobs. Do I think that the McDonald's, burger flipper is going to make $100,000 a year? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. Do I think that the Denny's waitress is going to make $100,000 a year?
Yeah,
Absolutely not.
You have to, I went to New York. We flew into New York. We took the train upstate. And on that train going upstate at 5 in the afternoon, 6 in the afternoon, there were people who got on in Manhattan and went all the way up, hour and 45 minutes to Poughkeepsie, to the end of the line, and got off the train. And I was talking to some of them. And they do that every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of what's going to have to happen, for a lot of these people that want to work in these areas where the money is. You got to travel. I mean, big cities all
They
over the
have
country.
infrastructure, though, Lenny. New York City is one of the best public transit systems in the country. Miami-Dade does not.
Wow.
We're now looking at Brightline as our saving grace. Like, you know what I mean? And that is one railway. And I'm a huge, huge proponent of Brightline. I cannot wait till they get the Orlando station, up and really running. It's open now, but they're not expecting, I don't think, to start actual, trips until later on in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one option, and it's one route.
Yeah, you got the, what is it, Metro? Not Metro Rail.
You're talking about Amtrak?
No. What's the one?
The Metro?
The Metro, and what's the one that goes from
Lenny.
What's the park and ride in
Lenny?
In up here? What is it? What goes
That's
there?
not a metro, though. That's a bus system.
No.
When was the last time you took public transportation in South Florida?
Been a while.
Been a while? Like ever?
Of course.
I can't imagine. Please.
I was
stop.
a kid. I used to take
like
the
what,
bus.
when you were 12?
Yeah.
Because I know you definitely had a car early on, whether it was yours or hot wired.
Whatever.
Remains to be, discovered. But I just know you had transportation. The point is, we lack the infrastructure that a lot of other cities have that make that a feasible option. There's a lot of people that do that in LA. I've read those same stories, and it's heartbreaking for me to read some of those. Like, there was a woman who works for, like, the county courts, like, or the county clerk's office or something, and she does the same thing. She lives, like, it's about a 3-hour commute. I almost want to say each way. And well, just because it's, the bus isn't going 65 or 70 miles an hour, and there's multiple stops because she takes a local train and whatever. But it was the only way that she could have a home, safety for her children, a great school district. But she had to sacrifice, work-life balance. She sacrifices a lot of time with her kids because she's constantly commuting. And the job that she's commuting for is a $50,000 a year job. Granted, it's a city job, so she's probably got a pension and obviously benefits. But is that a way to live? That's
like I said, a lot of people.
I'm talking about, but Lenny, at least we're admitting it now. Like, you can't. This isn't just a hey, if you want to work in this market. They're telling you.
What are we admitting though? We're admitting that prices are expensive here.
No. That you need to make Len. That means the people that are living here still have to be able to make a living. So the people that are living in those high rises, right? Whether it's working from home, that's one thing. What I'm saying to you is Miami has to do a better job of creating this kind of, because the median income, again, the people in Miami en masse make $45,000 a year. So that tells me that the folks moving here are either independently wealthy, you know what I'm saying, or again, it's family money, or it's not local Miami dollars. Like, we know we've always had a wealthy, well-to-do community. Obviously, you have Palm Beach right up the road. Fort Lauderdale is land of the nouveau riche.
Yeah. Miami
you know
Beach,
what I'm saying?
It's not too bad.
Miami Beach, but again, and a lot of them have had money over time. But it's still the 1%ers. You know what I'm saying? We just are getting a larger collection of them here. But this is a very real conversation in terms of just where the American workforce is heading when you're talking about major metropolises.
What's the solution? What's the solution? You have someone making $45,000, $50,000 a year. That's decent money.
Not anymore, Lenny.
That's not minimum wage.
Not anymore, though. It's not minimum wage because it's not minimum wage. You understand what I'm saying? If minimum wage was raised to where you would actually be getting a feasible amount of money,
a livable wage,
then that
so
would
people
change.
at McDonald's should make $60,000 a year.
I didn't say that.
But how do you fix it? How do you're not going to lower the rates. You're not going to lower the cost.
We're still a tourism, we're still a service industry based community. So with that being said, there was a very significant amount of time where if you didn't work in our financial district, our downtown Miami area, right? Broward was a little bit different, but Miami-Dade, it was strictly Caribbean, Central, and South American markets, right? If you didn't work for a company that managed funds or wealth or didn't do business with, those entities in those places, you didn't have a job in the financial markets in Miami. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, most of our big city law firms handle immigration, big time corporate law, and usually a state law. Like that's, it's not the big, and then obviously, Florida, because of our fabulous government, we became the land, we're probably one of the most litigious states on the planet with all of our, who can I sue and everything else and PIP benefits and blah, blah, blah. So you saw people making a good amount of money in that space too. But we didn't have the same kind of dynamic, financial epicenter that you saw in a New York, even in a Boston, like the State Street area. Oh, sorry. Turned my volume on my phone. San Francisco, we know the type of Silicon Valley. We know what is there. Miami was a playground for rich people.
Yes. Miami never really, growing up, I never considered Miami as a city. Mm-hmm. It never was.
Okay.
And it's still not your quintessential city.
No.
Because outside of that little 2 mile by 2 mile square patch that you call downtown Miami, it's not city. It's all, just goes all rural. Yeah. So you don't
have. It's not rural. It's still urban, but I understand it's very spread out. It's
but you literally on Brickell, you have single family homes.
Uh-huh.
So.
But you have that in places in Los Angeles too. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, maybe
Westwood,
somewhat. But
Brentwood, the Hills.
But not in the city part.
Well, no,
Chicago is a city, and there's a highway that wraps completely around it. Atlanta, a city. New York, a city. Manhattan is.
No, Miami's just much smaller. Our metropolis, our metropolitan Miami
because the city was never really a city. We didn't require that type of thing in Miami because the businesses here were all spread out, and the corporations were here and here and here. They didn't require to be in a city.
And it was also a beach. It was a beach town. It was a vacation spot. It was resort land.
And like we talked about, in the last 20 years, they've started to develop the city for residential, which,
But in order to have people live in those buildings, they have to be able to make a wage. Like, so even before on Miami Beach, south of 5th, which is probably some of the most prime real estate in the country right now, right? You remember what it was. That was... as recent as the late 90s, early 2000s, that was predominantly, aside from a half a dozen very high-end luxury condominiums that were on the perimeter, right, of South of 5th, so on the water, on Government Cut, on the Miami Beach Marina. That was like Section 8 housing for the worker bees of Miami Beach.
Yeah.
Right? The garden-style walk-up apartment.
It wasn't even just south of 5th. You had it all the way up Meridian. You had it all up Euclid.
My first apartment was 15th and Meridian, but I'm just saying that in particular, that area was extremely that little pocket, was very run down. And then you had the people who had owned those what were single family homes that then got divvied up and turned into duplexes and things like that. The deco style apartments that I think anybody who's lived in Miami has probably lived in one at some point in time. I know I did. But my first apartment, it cost me $650. That was what my monthly rent was. I was on 15th and Meridian. To anybody watching, like that's ever been, if you have ever seen Ocean Drive, Washington Avenue, where all the clubs were, I was
walk there.
I was 2 streets up, like on 15th, which is a central intersection. And I used to do that. I would leave my house and just go club hopping. You know what I mean? But it was a great little place. It wasn't a shoebox. I had a whole bedroom. It was definitely they'd done some modifications. I had a window in my bathroom because they added like a little front area. My refrigerator was in my portico.
Welcome to Miami.
Yeah. It was definitely that situation. I had Florida, I had the little Florida windows that rolled up and rolled out, which is why my apartment got broken into. But my point is $650. I guarantee you, I'm sure they've done some renovations. That bitch is probably renting for $2,200 right now.
Probably more.
Maybe. I told you I lived in a new high rise. I lived at the Flamingo Center Towers there, brand new tower, beautiful unit, a split primary situation. Again, probably 1,400 square feet. I think we were paying $2,400. Now that was early 2000, so that wasn't cheap. There were 2 of us, splitting the rent. I mean, I'm not saying that was normal for college students at all. And obviously people were helping. But those same units are now, like I said, $5,600, $6,000. It's one of the reasons why I left was because they were starting. That was early to mid 2000s. So we were hitting that bubble. And they were already starting to raise prices a little bit. So I moved over to the Midtown area, which hadn't been developed yet, and found my old ass building where it was $1,500 a month. I had the whole bitch to myself. And it was lovely. And I lived there for 17 years. But to me, the frightening thing is there has to be some sort of evolution in the actual economic setup of this city in order for it to be sustainable. Yes, you can clear six figures easily working at Joe Stone Crabs, working at Prime 112, working at, Anthony. Like there's plenty, to your point, Len, bartenders, bottle servers who are clearing thousands. But you also usually only have a window of time to do that.
And what about the 1,100 per 100,000 OnlyFans workers?
Well, yeah, but that's another new one. Miami, a new claim to fame for Miami. We have the most OnlyFans people per capita.
It's, these are girls are hustling. They're making,
They are. But again, that's 1,100 per 100,000 people. So even if that's 10,000 OnlyFans people, right? Some on the high end are clearing $1 million a month. Some on the lower end, 20K. I mean, still making great money.
I mean, they're still.
But that's still you make $20,000 a month, Lenny, on OnlyFans. You're clearing $260,000 a year. That's not in 2023 Miami money?
Yeah. Well, the problem is when you clean up the hoods in Miami, the people who make $100,000 a year want to move in. They're still, on the fringe of Wynwood, between Wynwood and UM and Jackson. There's some really cheap apartments over there, but it's hood. But when they clean it up, then,
Lenny,
it's like...
the point is, though, you went from being able to live. You're literally trying to tell somebody to go where they shoot first 48. Like, hey, roll the dice, Susie from Nebraska. Like, at least you're not going to bankrupt yourself. Like, that's not what it's supposed to be. And it happened overnight. So you can't get mad at people when the median income in a community is $45,000.
How many people moved here in the past 5 years? How many people flooded into South Florida in the last 4 to 5 years?
It doesn't matter. Like, no.
It matters.
But I don't know what your point is.
I'm just saying.
What you did to what they did to people who were existing residents, though, like that was just no scruples. That was straight slumlord shit. The way that they have bust people upside. They have people who had rental agreements that were locked in at $1,800. Oh, sorry, that's null and void now. You know what I mean? And you have people who can't necessarily afford to go get an attorney to represent them and pay for court costs and things like that. I mean. Why do you even try to justify this shit? Like we're just
it's
having
not
a
about
very
justifying it. It's just you have
you have people who could pay their rent one day and literally a month later no longer could.
Yeah.
And you're talking about service industry people who are always on the brink. Anytime there's economic uncertainty, that's the first thing that people cut out, right? Like you cut out
going to dinner.
You know what I mean? Or you're not necessarily tipping as much. Maybe, and that happens all the time in Miami. We see that shit. Let the stock market have a bad year. Shit dries up so fast in Miami because people ain't taking their little weekend vacations and coming down here and blowing $50,000 in the clubs and on South Beach and at the hotels and on hookers and call girls and everything else. Like that, the economy in Miami is heavily dependent on what is happening in a lot of other places.
Yeah, it's fragile
as well. You know what I mean? So to have a fragile economy and now also be in one of the places where it's illegal to have rent control in this state. We know this. That's actually written into our Constitution. Like, you cannot try to implement rent control. I'm not even necessarily saying I'm a fan of it, but that's a way that other big cities have curbed this kind of issue and made sure that at least their service industry people, the people that keep those cities running, can make it happen. Like, there's a lot of backline chefs and housekeeping staff that lives in the Bronx, in Hell's Kitchen, in Queens, in Harlem, some, even in Manhattan, and it's because the city looked out and said, hey, we don't exist. New York is not New York without this group of people, right? Like asking people to move to Orlando and continue to work in Miami hotels. Why? I got Disney World, Universal, Gaylord. We got plenty of hotels in Orlando. Like, that's going to be, then they can go an hour away to Tampa. They got plenty of hotels in Tampa. Like, I think that we really need to take this seriously. Like, I'm just happy that we now have proof, because I've been trying to say it, and I think for a long time people were like, how much money do you really need? Like, and it's like, bitch, now you need at least 150 grand.
Or you got to travel. I mean, or you got to travel.
Not everybody can do that, though, Lenny. Like, even for what I do, right? I would not make the same amount of money doing what I do in Orlando that I do here in Miami.
Of course.
Right? I also might not have an opportunity to do it in Orlando.
Yeah, but even you have to drive 25 minutes to work.
Yeah, but it'd probably be cheaper for you.
I'm just saying, you drive off hours, so you're lucky.
I do, but I also prioritize. But for me, though, I prioritize my living space. Like, I'm one of those, you're not going to hear me, and I'm also fortunate. Like, I was able to absorb that hit and still maintain, the level of accommodation that I was used to. Not everybody is, and I don't have a roommate. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't, at 42, I don't want a roommate, Lenny. Like, I don't want to be in that situation where, and again, it happened overnight. This wasn't like hey, San Francisco's always had exorbitant rent prices. If you want to get a job in New York City, you want to be an actress, you already know that's what you're signing up for. Like, you are signing up to live in a shoebox with 6 other people, and you're going to rotate sleep schedules. Like, that going into it. People didn't know that in Miami, right? And it was like the rug was pulled out from underneath them. And now a lot of folks are like, why are you crying? Like, they can't understand the conversation. And you're kind of removed from it at this point because you're established and
I think Doral, Kendall, North Miami.
Doral and Kendall are expensive too now, though.
But I mean, you could live there. You can get an apartment there for $1,800 a month. But
$1,800 a month. But you know what I pay? I lived in Kendall. I lived in Kendall in 2000. Do you know what my rent was in Kendall for a 2-bedroom? $1,050. $1,050. $1,050, and I split that with somebody. I was in college.
What I'm saying is, it's a 35-minute drive to downtown. It's a 35.
35. Are you out of your mind?
45.
An hour and 15. During
whatever.
prime time, I hit the top of US 1, and it takes me 45 to 50 minutes to get to Sunset Place now. That's how wild the traffic situation is, because to your point, people have moved here. I'm just saying, I hope that, getting confirmation about, I don't want to even call it a statistic, but information like that is a little bit of firepower for the people who are struggling and are trying to get folks, unfortunately, like you, Lenny, to understand that the struggle is real. They're not asking for handouts, but it's like, can I catch a break? When that shit happens overnight, you don't even have the time to save up the proper amount of money. When all of a sudden your rent is double, and now it's like, what happens if you had a kid? Like, what happens if you were good, taking care, now you have to invite a stranger in to your home, and that's a whole other vetting process. We've got people out here being killed by their nutso Craigslist roommates. Like, you have people trying to do better. You've got people Ubering and DoorDashing and Grubhubbing, and now they're, risks of getting robbed and assaulted and the rest of this shit. It's crazy. Like, you should be able to get a good job. And to your point, the people that were making $45,000 and $50,000 a year had what many of us would have thought were good jobs. Mm-hmm. It's just unfortunate that good jobs are no longer paying good money, and it's not their fault. It's that the universe is upside down.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, the economy's in a weird place. That's definitely,
But do you think
prices
that
are rising?
Owners, I want to ask, because I'm going to ask you this. If you had it to give to your employees, would you? Or would you try to lowball them as long as you possibly could to increase your profits? I know that's a very difficult
I don't think. No, I don't think. I believe in paying people a fair wage for the job they do.
Do you agree, though, that has to increase over time because there is a cost of living, like that life costs more now than it did 20 years ago?
But if you're a pharmacist and you made $100,000 a year 10 years ago,
you don't think you should be making 115 now?
115 is not even close to what the prices have gone up in the last 10 years.
Okay, then.
So if you're talking about keeping salaries up with inflation, it's never going to happen. It's never you couldn't sustain it. Small businesses can't sustain it.
Okay.
Inflation's 8% a year right now.
Okay, but that's been for like the last 2 years. Like this is not
Okay,
been a
let's just say
long-term
3% a year.
Which is
okay,
usually
over
what it is.
10
And
years.
Most people do get a 3%, do they not? Don't you usually get like a 3%?
You're gonna
cost of
cap.
living?
You're gonna cap. You're gonna cap. You can't pay a pharmacist that's worked for you for 15 years $200,000 a year. The money's not there. You know, you have a business that makes X amount of dollars. That the insurance companies aren't paying the pharmacy more because of the cost of living. The people aren't paying higher copays because of the cost of living. Yet you expect to pay your employees.
But you're charging your people more because your costs are going up too. So you're making more money.
No, that's what I'm telling you. A lot of businesses rely on what you're talking about, okay, let's just use a restaurant, for instance. You're going to pay double for a hamburger in 2 years? That money, Do you
give yourself a raise?
No.
But you're taken care of, and I understand you own the business. So do you see the dilemma that we're in here? Because how can you expect to
but you can't expect the business owner
employee loyalty though?
You can't expect the business owner to reach.
But that's also experience.
Reach in their pocket.
But that's experience. If you started off paying that person $100,000, you don't think that experience, the relationship with your customers, their loyalty, their reliability is worth an increase in rate? You don't
Yes,
you think that you should pay them the same that you paid them out the gate for their entire tenure with you?
I think everybody deserves a raise for doing their job up to a certain point. Mm-hmm. There's a level, Kimmy. Mm-hmm. There's a level that you get to in regular things.
Do you do extra things then? Do you say, okay, listen, how about this? I'll get you a company car because that's a write-off for you. How do you help offset
a write-off is kind of an illusion, but
my family we had family businesses, and I know there's lots of fun ways to get around paying Uncle Sam money.
Yes.
So if you're
and
turning
they get
a
bonuses,
profit,
they get bonuses. Yeah, if you make money, if the company makes money, everybody shares in it. There's profit and participation in all my companies.
Okay.
But
how many business owners do you think operate from that space though?
You're talking about different types of businesses. You're talking about, it's what's sustainable.
But you realize though that now people have this information at their fingertips. Like that's what's being shared on, TikTok and Instagram and on Reddit and on Discord and on all of these places that people are giving you a peek behind the curtain, right? Like you've got business owners who are basically pulling the rug out from other business owners. They're basically dropping dime on themselves, with the hopes of selling some online class. And, you've got employees that have worked, that have, seen the inner workings of companies, that know what the books look like, that are, again, pulling back the curtain on the wizard, right? And so now you have a working community that is better. I don't want to even say better staffed, but they're better prepared to go in for negotiations. They're not buying into the bullshit and the company line. To your point, it's not like GE back in the day where you knew as soon as you set foot in the door, that was the company you were going to be with for 30 years. You were going to retire with a pension, benefits, a plaque, and a watch. Everybody's trying to make their next move their best move because nobody feels like anybody's got their best interests at heart or is loyal.
And everybody wants
employers
to be the boss.
don't feel that employees don't feel that employers are,
Yeah, but that, until you've walked in somebody else's shoes, you don't understand. You don't understand that the owner of the company is responsible for everything. He's responsible to make sure you got a paycheck on Friday. He's responsible to make sure the lights are on in the place. He works 60, 70 hours a week. He doesn't get compensated extra for that. He's making the effort.
But your employees are the backbone of your company. They make the shit run. You couldn't do everything yourself. You couldn't scale without them.
In 90% of businesses, employees are disposable.
Okay.
You can transfer one out and a new
So
one
you
in.
understand though that when you say things like that and they end up on YouTube, like this is exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Not just about you, but now employees understand that. So when we're having that debate about why aren't people committed to their jobs? Why isn't anybody reliable anymore? Why doesn't anybody work? It's because we've heard that time and time and time again now.
And you know what?
An employer saying and we've seen it
The
firsthand.
the ones that aren't replaced are the ones that work. Are the ones that make the effort. And so if you go into a job saying, they can just replace me. I'm just going to, come here and make my paycheck.
Sometimes if your paycheck is too high,
I'm going to come here and make my paycheck for 6 months and then whatever, I'm just going to coast through it. Those are the ones that don't stay.
The irony of that though is, as much truth as there is in what you're saying, on the flip side of that, there's also the detriment of being great at what you do, being compensated for it, and then being a liability because your compensation is too high, or you have AI and now you've got somebody who's incredible at what they do, but you've now found a way to cut costs. So that guy making, $150,000.
That's the ultimate.
So don't say that people
money.
Get let go just because they don't work. Like there are also people who are extremely valuable,
of course,
who, are replaced because an employer says, hey, as much as I love what you do, I can get something close. It might not be exact, but it's going to save me $80,000 a year off my bottom line.
All I can tell you is if you're going to work for a small business, because corporate America is runs by a book. That's a different animal. But if you're going to work for a small business, the only thing that small business owner is looking for is you to love your job. And if you love your job and there's money available in that small business, he's going to pass it down.
Now, the reason why I asked that, though, is because I feel like that is what the economy of South Florida is built on, though. And that's why I asked you that, because we're still not a big corporate mecca as much as, as much as Francis Suarez would love for, the world to believe that the entire tech industry is moving here. They're not.
No, they wouldn't move. They wouldn't move to Dade County anyways.
Many big players have said that.
They're going to move. They're going to move mid-state, Tampa,
feasibility,
wherever.
It's just not it. Also, you're going to distract the shit out of your employees.
Yeah, I mean, it's just. But no, it doesn't make sense.
I get that. And especially not with where rents, with the cost of things right now in this particular area. It's a luxury market. So, on the flip side of that, a lot of business opportunity is through smaller entities, and not that what you do is on a small scale, you know what I'm saying? But it's people like you that are going to be the ones ensuring that individual, and of course the folks that are working from home and things of that nature.
Listen, South Florida was an illusion for a long time. You could live here and make decent money and live a decent life in South Florida. It's no longer that. It's become a big city, which it wasn't before. So, yeah, this stuff is happening overnight. It seems like it's happening overnight, but I mean, it's like, Kimmy, if somebody came to you and said, hey, I'll give you double your salary if you leave your job tomorrow, what would you do?
It would depend on where I was going.
If someone said I'd give you the same job you have now for double the salary tomorrow.
In Topeka, Kansas, I'm not doing it.
No, if somebody offered you the same job, you have tomorrow on a rival radio station for double the money.
Oh, yeah, I'm going.
You're going. So when someone walks into this building, and says, damn, I'll give you double the money for that apartment. Why is that guy wrong? Why is that apartment building owner wrong to do that? Because that's what happened.
Question of humanity, though, and I know that's a little snowflakey, Libby of me, and I get that.
That's the bottom line.
I think it's a heads up, but what made and that's an unfortunate bottom line, because your apartment isn't all of a sudden worth XYZ, right?
An apartment is worth what someone will pay for it.
So is art. So is a house.
Yes.
I get all of those things. I get that. It's just unfortunate because the market it's just skewed. you're in real estate, like there's places you're looking, and I know you're laughing. Like there's a shit ton of property you would not pay what they're asking for right now.
I have a friend, he owns 5 houses, and he's had the same tenants in those houses for a long time. One was his personal house that he rented to somebody. Mm-hmm. It's a 3-2, probably 1,800 square feet, nicely done. He rents it for $2,200 a month in a nice area. I'm like, bro, he's giving his tenants literally $1,000 a month, every one of them.
He's a good man, though. I feel like that'll come back to him.
I'm not. But that's his. I think he's. But that's his thing, and it's out there. It's still out there because he wants to have. Look, I got good tenants. Been there 8-10 years.
He's weighing the pros.
Yeah,
yeah.
So he's like, I don't have to worry about it. When it comes to these big buildings, they don't have to do that.
Yeah.
They don't have that luxury. Mm-hmm. People are like Grant. He's buying these buildings for $200 million, mm-hmm. knowing that the market will bear more. Mm-hmm. So when he looks at a deal, you got 100 units rented at $2,000, but the market will bear $2,800, mm-hmm. but I'm only paying based on $2,000. That $800 is my profit. Mm-hmm. So, that's what happens. These buildings get bought up, they get renovated slightly, and they raise the rent on everybody.
I get that. But like a city like New York, which is an epicenter of the world, and it functions on all levels. It functions in entertainment, it functions in finance, it functions in real estate, it functions in every aspect, right? They have done things to protect the smaller or less fortunate, constituents. Of course they have, because they understand they don't have the hotel industry without, they understand certain things. I'm not saying that we need rent. I'm not talking about rent control, but I would like to see designated affordable housing. And I'm not talking about projects. I'm not talking about, what we see west of 95.
So who do you qualify for that? Let's say you got a 100-unit building. You have to leave 10 units at a fixed.
I don't even think it should be. Why is it 10, though? There should be entire buildings dedicated to
because you're not going to get that done.
Why? Why are those people not getting a massive tax break if they're doing that?
Do you want to add? Because you're not going to get that done. Because people,
because people
they have to make
are
money.
Inherently greedy and are trash.
No, they have businesses. They have to make money.
No, but the thing is, it's only that much because you've allowed it to get to that point. You're just greedy at that point. If we would ever just come together, this is the lefty side of me just looking at it and going, at some point, your boy understands having good tenants, having quality people, keeping the community here, making sure our hotels and all of these industries continue to run and function, and that
he's
what
just
made
lazy.
Miami you can't take it back at this point. He's got good, no, but that's a fact though. Having good tenants, people can
absolutely. Absolutely, but the problem is with making a whole building at a rent level. How do you qualify the people?
The people that work in the area. Why can't you make it specifically
how do you qualify
for those
the people? How do you qualify them to know? Because not everybody's going to qualify on credit rating. Not everybody's going to qualify. You want, if someone has a nice building that's worth $3,000 a unit, and you want them to rent the whole entire building for $2,000 a unit. You're changing the dynamic of the people.
It's worth $3,000. There isn't a building in Midtown right now worth $7,500 a month, but they're charging it because, like you said, they can, because you have shithead people that came from other places that just had fuck off money. They had fuck all money. That to me is just,
they're saving that on their state income
trash.
Tax.
No, facts.
They're saving that on their state income tax.
I get it, 1,000. And guess what? Half of those apartments are still empty because they've got them so that they can say they're Florida residents, and they go back because they make their money in New York and they have their summer homes in the Hamptons and everything else. So all of this, everybody's moving to Florida. Meh. It's now clicking. Oh shit, no, what? Bet. So they finally caught on. Yeah. I have a lot of homeboys that signed every NFL contract ever in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Because no state income tax, right? They're all Floridians. A lot of them don't live here. You know what I mean? They might be here once every 6 months, but they're Florida residents.
They actually changed those laws recently. You have to be here a certain amount of time.
How do they know? If you have a home that you pay property tax on, how do they fucking know? You're contributing.
They can tell.
No, you own a home here.
They know everything.
They know everything. They clearly don't. And there's plenty of people doing it, including our president, our former president. So get the fuck out of here with
He's
that
here
bullshit.
6 months a year.
Yeah, you can fly in, touchdown, and go back, and he's not there anymore. Because anyway, I'm gonna shut up. There's plenty of people that are milking the system, Len. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. At the end of the day, my point is $7,500 for a 7th-floor apartment with no water view. It's disgraceful. Like, it's disgraceful. So for you to sit here and tell me the units are worth $3,000, no, they're not. But I get it. Like, the fixtures aren't worth $3,000. The square footage ain't worth $3,000. None of it is worth $3,000. I understand your point. It's worth whatever somebody's willing to pay you. But, like, there was a dude, Fireman Derek. He owns, a very prominent bake shop. Super good dude. We were having a conversation, and he was
or bait?
Bakery.
Oh,
like
okay.
a bakery. But he's, like, very famous. And he just actually opened one up here in Broward, too.
Where? What's it called?
Federal. Fireman Derek's.
Oh.
Incredible. Like, incredible. But he wanted to get some local, because his first base was in Wynwood, some of the local business owners to get together and buy a plot of land and basically build housing for their staffs. Like, not rent-free housing, but just to ensure that these guys didn't have to commute from Homestead on the Metro Rail or from, the freaking Everglades or Miccosukee Park or wherever the hell it is.
I feel you.
And unfortunately, it was very difficult to get the property. And that makes me sad. You have the Homeless Trust, which has done a phenomenal job of, making this an incredible place to live, especially for, the wealthy. We have a much less prevalent homeless situation than many of the major metropolises. Not even a drop in the hat or the bucket compared to LA, San Francisco, I'm sure even, New York. But they work very hard, and they're constantly looking for units to put people in. And they pay. They've got grants and budgets and funding and all of these things. And it's difficult to get people to do it, and that's sad, and it's only getting worse with the immigration, situation. So it's like, I wish there were just more good-hearted people, because I really do believe, and I think Grant Cardone agrees, at least, when he sits on the chair and he talks about it, that, God blesses those who bless others. Like, if you pay it forward, if you take care of people, those blessings come back to you, right? Like, if you spread it around, I'm not asking for every building here to be that way, but at least ensure that, the least fortunate, the folks who didn't have any choice but to moved the fuck out, because they've been renting a house in Buena Vista, you know what I mean? That belonged to somebody's great-great-grandmother that had owned it for decades. And the next thing you know, somebody came in and offered her $3 million for a plot of land she probably paid $6,000 for. Like, that's shitty, and they've lived there their whole life. Like, I don't know. Like, and I just need people like you to be a little bit more patient when folks like your 27-year-old son or the people that are commenting on Instagram are talking about, the struggle being real, because it clearly is. When shit changes that quickly, like, no generation I don't think, had to deal with this kind of change in financially successful times. Like, the Great Depression hit almost everybody, right? This is different. Like, what's happening now is different. And maybe it won't be. And I don't want to see that happen, obviously. But you have people soaring financially, and yet a large swath over here is just flailing with no sign of help coming. And that's a very scary place to be at, because it's only going to get more expensive. Like, that's something that I mull over all the time, because to your point, it's like, okay, how much, how do you keep adding money to the mix, right? I get it. You have passive income, you do this, you do that. Like, take that, we're mad at everybody wanting to be an influencer, but fuck.
Yeah.
What other option do people have?
There's not many.
And I don't have cute enough feet to be on OnlyFans.
I mean, listen, I think there's plenty of opportunity today that young people can make more money and do more things. I think we're not equipping them well in how to do it. But I'm still, it is what it is. You want to live here, you sacrifice something.
I get that, but I just wish, and that goes back to the education component. I wish that we were arming our young people. I don't know what to say to the folks who are already in it. You know what I mean? If you're in your 20s and your early 30s and you've already gotten your degree, and not that you feel like you've maxed out,
Yeah.
but like you know what the trajectory is for your career path, right?
Yeah.
Like
Look for a place that's more sustainable to live.
I
You
get
got to
that.
move.
But to the next generation that's coming up, how do we
It's
position
happening right
them-
now in Austin.
Well, yeah.
This
I
whole
can-
thing,
I
this
can
whole
imagine.
thing, the same thing is happening in Austin. Austin's going to be right in this same
I
place
believe it.
in probably 2 years.
They're outpricing everybody.
Yeah, I mean, everybody from California is moving to Austin.
Okay, there's
What? Listen,
everybody. You guys, please stop it.
It's like
There's
everybody
still
from New
plenty
York
of
is
peop-
moving here.
No, there's still plenty of people in New York. There's still plenty of people
Yeah.
in California. Austin is small and already had a good amount of folks. So yes,
Yeah.
I get that. But people that have disposable
they're
income,
getting influxed of, when you have thousands of people moving from here to here, that's you can pretty much say that's an influx. It's not like one person is moving because they got a job changed. I mean, literally probably
But again, you have
50,000 people moved here
but
from
you
New
have-
York in the past 3 years.
industries. I mean, you have a lot of people hitting retirement age. You have a lot of retirees that moved here. Again, you have a lot of people that moved.
This
to
is no longer
Florida.
the place for retirees.
You're out of your mind.
It's not like it was.
What are you talking about? Of course, people like my friends who are in their 40s in Massachusetts are buying property here because this is where they want to retire. Like they have their second homes.
When you think of retirees here,
I'm not talking about the convalescent homes on
well,
Ocean
I mean,
Drive, sir.
listen, I would say probably 40% of the real estate in this South Florida corridor was designated 55 and over at some point.
Yeah, you're talking about 40 years ago.
Yeah, so it's not that
Okay,
kind of
Len.
retirees. The
No,
retirees
I'm
are,
talking about my friends that are 40-somethings that are business owners and things like that have been buying property
Yeah.
in Florida because they spent their childhoods coming to Disney World and coming to see their grandparents. So, I mean, this is something that's been happening. You just have now younger people that have cash that bought in, and a ton of people, relatives of mine, bought during COVID because they wanted to get out of Massachusetts. They wanted out. It was the winter. They were fucking stuck inside. I get that, and it is a beautiful state. I understand all of those things. And I'm not mad at, us getting our just due in the sense of, what real estate is worth and things like that. It's just sad when you see entire, I don't want to say entire populations, but people who helped build something into what it is get forced out. And again, it's going to happen en masse on the West Coast after that hurricane. It's already happening as developers are coming in and buying out these generational folks that lived on these prime pieces of property in a trailer. You know what I mean? On these different barrier islands and things like that can in no way, shape, or form afford to rebuild, and especially up to code. So they're being forced to sell their plot of land. They're getting a nice chunk of change, but they're moving to Atlanta. They're moving to Austin. They're moving.
Or they're
being forced
moving,
out.
they're moving to Lehigh Acres.
No, most of them are leaving the state because it's getting so expensive to live almost everywhere that you would actually want to live. Like, people in Florida want to live by the fucking water, Lenny, for the most part, or at least be a 30-minute drive to the beach. Like, I don't want to live in Ocala. I don't own fucking horses. That's not my idea of fun, Florida.
feel you.
You know what I'm saying?
There's
Like,
still a lot of beachfront places that are nice here.
they're not cheap, though. No offense, New Smyrna, again. I've seen the people there. No thanks, Billy Bob. I'm good.
But that's where this area that we're living in right now was once Billy Bob's.
Miami Beach was never Billy Bob's.
You'd be surprised.
It was.
No, it was definitely rich and famous, but
And Jewish.
Yeah. It was rich and famous, but the core of South Florida was
The Florida Cracker? Is that what you like?
it's
I mean,
always been. I mean,
they've
with
been
the city
here, yeah.
the city we're in right now. Still, I mean, till 5 years ago,
Yeah.
one of the founding fathers was the mayor here. One of the founding fathers' family was the mayor here till 5 years ago.
I mean, Dania Beach.
Yeah,
is
that's what I'm
actually
talking
the
about.
largest tomato producer area in the country.
Yeah.
They had a Miss Tomato pageant. I know that I hosted like their 110-year anniversary or whatever. Yeah.
Hallandale used to have an outhouse race every year.
Shut up.
I swear to God. Every year, the
things
annual outhouse race.
The things you learn about Florida. But
So-
I mean, listen, again, I'm just glad that now my argument has a little has been substantiated. That's all. That in order to live in Miami and not be, rent burdened, not be up Poops Creek without a paddle, you've got to be clearing at least 6 figures. And 6 figures 10 years ago was like goals. You know what I'm saying? And now it is the bare minimum you need to survive in major metropolises, which, again, this just circles back. Kids that go to college en masse, you know what I mean? And when I say kids that go to college, I'm talking about the ones who aspire to these lives, right? Mm-hmm. In the big city, in the New Yorks, in the Atlantas, in the DCs, in the Miamis. That was what they had their, the goal was 6 figures,
raise the
wifey,
bar,
husband,
baby.
You know what I'm saying? No, but again, but it's not raising the bar. We know it. It's people like you. It's people like you that say 45, 50 grand a year is a nice paycheck. No, the fuck it isn't.
What do you want
not
me to tell
when
you?
you have aspirations.
If it's all you're worth.
No, I'm not saying that.
Or all the jobs
you can
worth.
go fuck yourself. Because when people, when you say shit like that and you're looking directly at me, it sounds like it's directed at me.
Really?
And I clear more than that. That's for sure. Know. But whatever. My point is that now, right, goals have to change. But you can only do what the workforce is willing to pay. Mm-hmm. So everything has to shift, though. Everything has to shift. Those jobs that maybe were $150,000 jobs, some people are adjusting. Google adjusted. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure some of those folks at Twitter get a very nice paycheck. I'm sure, these tech folks are out here, the pharmaceutical
Yeah, the ones that actually work. The other half got fired.
Okay, that's not what I'm
Twitter.
talking about, though.
But I mean, you have to look at what he did. He took that company and fired half the staff, and it's running just as efficient.
How do you know?
What do you mean? It's
How do you
everywhere.
know?
It's put.
What is put everywhere?
It's put out everywhere.
What is put out everywhere? The efficiency
What's
of Twitter.
Going on with,
Did you see Ron DeSantis's fucking campaign announcement? Did you witness that debacle? It is not running efficiently, sir. I mean,
I don't know.
What are you talking about? So it's back to shit talking. It's been a shit show the entire time. It's doing exactly what it was doing. He's just now not paying people to make it any better. The fuck are you talking about?
Paying people to make it any better.
He cut the it's not like his staffing cuts made the product better. So I don't know what you're patting him on the back for. It's still got bugs. It's still got this. It's not like he's literally just he's mitigating expenses. He's not making the product any better, which is what he promised to do.
But why is it not better? Because people can say whatever they want on there?
No, it's exactly the same. So that means there was nothing wrong with it. He didn't make it better. It's the same, Len. How active are you on Twitter?
Let's just say it's the same. Let's just say it's 10% worse than it was.
I'm talking about from an efficiency standpoint. What are you telling me? What people can talk about on there? At the end of the day, I was
from an efficiency standpoint, let's say it dropped 10%. He got rid of half the staff.
Okay, so again, but he's not making it better.
And he's paying the other half.
Okay. What?
He's paying the other half better.
He's
working.
Not a good employer, and you don't know what he's paying anybody. That information is not out there. Nobody is out here. I'm calling fake news on you. I have not seen one. Who is happy? Do you talk to the Twitter employees? Are there people that you know that I don't know?
There's no major exodus.
But, because did you see what happened? The last guy that complained, he got fired in a live Twitter feed.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
They literally locked him out of his, right now, tech jobs are hard to come by. So, most people are probably biting their tongue. And he's using it as a platform for himself. Elon wanted a little bit more pub, and he's getting it. It's a toy for a very rich boy. That's all that is. So let's not use him as the ideal, manager to look up to right now. All I'm saying is that everybody's going to have to adjust. And I think Miami is just a fantastic example of that. And I finally have just got the substantiated proof of what I've been arguing with you on this couch. You want to yell about how I know a lot of people that live just fine on $40,000. You bitch, no, you do not. I love you, but no, you don't. I'd love to know how many people. Your son doesn't even make $40,000 a year.
He most certainly does, but
he makes more than that. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm saying to you is, not even your son is on that low end, and he just moved home.
Yeah, but he moved home by choice. He didn't have to.
He moved home. Why did he move home? Because they were raising his rent and he didn't want to pay it, right?
Yep. You see that right there? because he didn't want to pay it because he has a golden parachute.
Because it's how much? Because it's how much though?
It doesn't matter.
What do you? No, it does. Like
he
and
could
he's lucky
afford
enough,
it.
Could it afford it and what? Live and splurt and have a good life, or come home? And
he
live
could
a little
afford
better?
it and hustle to have that good life, just like
Okay.
everybody else does.
And it's really not. How great is? I mean, it's a 700 square foot apartment. Like that's not a great. Like that was. I'd move home too, Len, if I was moving where he moved. No offense. I mean, and he's what, 27?
Yeah.
I mean, that's no offense. That's young. I'm surprised you got him out earlier. Like most parents right now would be like, "How'd you get him out in the first place?" Because most of them are sticking around until they're 30.
Because I'm an asshole and he wanted to leave. He wanted to be independent.
Well, I mean, that I can't disagree with. But anyway, thank you to whoever did the study and found out that it now costs at
Yes.
least, $100,000 a year
Validation has
to
been
not
served.
be, rent burdened in Miami. Now we just have to find more of those jobs for more of the people from this community. Like, it just sucks to have your talent leave and go other places. Do you know what I'm saying? Because they can't afford to stay here and give back. Like, why would we want to lose all of the smart kids who, are making entry-level wages to cheaper places in North Carolina or here or there? Like, we have to get some industry here, or at least prepare them to work in these fields that are coming hot out the gate. You know what I mean?
I feel you.
Okay. Do you really know? You don't. But all I know is it costs over $100,000 a year to live in Miami. You have to have a 6-figure salary, which means I win this conversation because I've been saying that.
She won.
I've been saying that. Thank you.
She's been saying that.
All right,
Okay.
listen. I'm on your side, guys. I get it. Something's got to give at some point, or we're gonna have a whole lot of people living in Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think our OnlyFans
listen,
rate needs to go up.
but then you can't get mad. You can't. I mean, when your daughter's like, "Listen, Mom, Dad, this is what I'm doing because it's the only way I can afford my apartment." Then, is that what we really want, though? Is hundreds of thousands of OnlyFanners?
No, we want those girls to get husbands.
We're the same. Oh my God.
That's what we want.
The same country out here Bible thumping and talking about pornography and all of these things, and then on the other side, the only way people can manage to live in half of these cities is by being purveyors of porn.
Yep.
Love the hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to America. Listen, that's episode 56. I'm not giving him any more opportunity to say stupid shit like we want those girls to get husbands. So please like, subscribe, share, follow. You know the drill. Drop your comments. The husbands still have to be making 6 figures too, though, bro. So that's that. But anyway,
I didn't say she didn't have to work.
We'll see you next time.
Bitch better have my money.
This is what I'm dealing with. This is what I tried. I tried to save him before he did that to himself. He had to do it. Listen,
Yep.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.